After years of being cast aside for the golden child, my mom and stepfather suddenly demanded I pay for his college, forcing me to expose their abuse and lies. I am male, 27. After my mom, female, 52, remarried and had a new kid, I was basically dead weight in that family. My stepdad, Luke, male, 50, was always cold or acted manipulative, and I never got along with him. I honestly cannot tell what my mom sees in him. They married when I was 12, and things were terrible as soon as Luke moved in. Just 1 year later, my half-brother Kyle was born, and it went from being terrible to straight up unbearable. All the focus was on my brother. I was not just an afterthought, it went beyond that. Luke used to manipulate my mom into not stepping in while he actively created reasons to put me down or paint me as a problem child. I will not get into it in detail, but one example is that he would either forget to pick me up from school or take an hour or two to do it. I would end up walking back home, and eventually I just asked for a carpool with a friend. Luke and my mom were constantly discussing Kyle, his ideal diet, his preschool, and his friendships, and I felt resentful about it. I mean, I know I should not have because he was literally just a baby, but tell that to hormonal me from the past. I fully admit that I used to make passive-aggressive comments about Kyle, and I was not a good big brother to him. This made my stepdad run with his idea of me being a bad kid even harder. Even though my mom was not immune to reason, she took his side a lot more than mine when it came to my issues. All of these things put together, my stepdad's toxic behavior, feeling left behind by the new baby, and not having the support of my mom, made me run away from home at the age of 14. I did not do very well at my attempt, though, and somebody found me at a bus stop in 1 week. I was sent back to my parents, and they did not even take this event to comfort me or try to understand my point of view. My stepdad just said, "You scared us with your antics. Do you really think you deserve to come back and live under my roof after pulling that?" And I had no response. My mom was afraid for me when I ran away, but once again, she did not stick up for me. The only reason I did not go completely insane during this time was because my paternal grandparents lived close by. My dad had passed away when my mom was pregnant, and they had never married, but my paternal grandparents were really close to me. I remember my grandma saying that I was the last piece of her son that she had, and through them, I got to know about my father and his life. Even though I never met him, I respected him and felt his loss. My grandparents lived very close by, and I would spend my summer vacations with them. My grandpa taught me more about being a man than Luke did, and my grandma was more caring than my biological mother. They always managed to find ways to develop my skills and interests and listen to me when I felt insecure about Kyle. I opened up to them, but never explicitly let them know how bad it was at home. Although after I ran away from home, it became self-evident. One day my grandparents came over to visit and had a conversation with my mom and Luke. They later approached me and asked, "Would you want to come live with us? We are moving down to Florida, and we would miss you terribly." And wow, Luke and your mom would be okay with it too. I do not agree with what they are saying. But they think you are a handful, and I think that just means they are not loving you the right way here. I never expected the turn of events to take place, but it did. I immediately said yes, I am prepared to move to Florida. I was not shocked when Luke and my mom barely reacted to me leaving. I lived with my grandparents, and the change in my mental state was crazy. Obviously, it took a little time to adjust to Florida. There are a lot of old people there, but I made new friends in school and kept in touch with my old friends online. Eventually, I decided to pursue engineering, and my grandparents covered my tuition costs out of their retirement money. It was a very generous act by them, and I really appreciate it to this day because when I talked about it on a call with Luke and Mom, they said it was not financially possible for them. I think that was BS because they were quite well off back then, but I was not going to push it. My relationship with them was basically dead after that. I only knew about what was going on with them through the limited interactions I had with Mom's side of the family. I ended up working in an automobile company and making a decent chunk of money. I now live in Texas and I am looking to buy my first house. I also started a side business restoring old cars in my garage, which is giving me plenty of fun money, as well as interesting projects to do. Last month, it was Kyle's 14th birthday, and I spoke to him on the phone. He was polite to me and has turned out to be a pretty decent kid. I have only started reconnecting with him recently because it took me a long time to let go of the resentment that I held against him. When I did, though, I realized he was a good person, and my attitude against him was irrational. Anyway, he said he wanted to get into gaming, so I thought I could give him a nice gaming PC, nothing extravagant, but it was around $700. This was also the first time I was visiting Luke and my mom in ages. When I visited, I was shocked to see the state of the place. A lot of the furniture from my childhood had been sold off, and it was clear they were struggling financially. When I gifted Kyle the PC, I could tell my mom and stepdad were taken aback. They asked me more about my work, and I stupidly gave them my role. It was clear that I was making a lot of money, and I mean, they would have known if they ever asked me about my life, but oh well. Anyway, money talks did not rear their ugly head again, and I drove back home. However, when I got home, I got a call out of the blue from Luke saying he needed to speak to me urgently. I asked him what the deal was, and he said that my mom and he were in serious debt. Because of that, they ended up spending Kyle's college fund and paying off installments. After seeing my perceived wealth, they wanted me to chip in. I was a little taken aback, but Luke played on the affection I had for my brother by saying, "You know, Kyle, I know we do not talk, but you are talking to my kid, your brother. He deserves this chance, right?" It was kind of a low ball, but I did not agree to anything. I ended the call and thought about what to do, but before I could even rest for 1 minute, I got a text from my mom repeating what Luke said, but also saying that if I could not help my brother out, I did not deserve to see him. I know Kyle is a great kid, and he did not do anything to become the golden child beyond circumstance. As soon as he was old enough, he tried to reach out to me and contact me, but I was cold to him for years until I got old enough. He is only 15 now, but college is not too far away. From what Luke and Mom say, college would be an impossibility unless I chip in. At the same time, I do not have a lot of money. I mean, college is expensive, and I am already worried about mortgages and my car payments. Would I be the a-hole if I refused to help out with the college fund? Update 1. I thought about it overnight, and I decided to go to my grandpa about it. He always has good advice. In this scenario, he was kind of facing a dead end. I did not know how Luke and my mom would spend that money, and if it would go to Kyle's college education. Grandpa pointed out that such a drastic reduction in financial stability was a red flag, and I needed to make sure my brother was going to be benefited from this. After hearing him out, I also spoke to a few people on Mom's side to try and figure out what exactly had happened and why they had never told me. My aunt skirted around the issue and eventually told me that Luke and Mom were having marital trouble because of something, and nobody had told me because my relationship with them was rocky enough as it is. Now, I am not only worried about where my money is going, but I am worried about Kyle too. I am going to call him and ask him to be honest with me about how things are at home. Update 2, I called Kyle and he was not ready to open up at first, but eventually he told me the truth. His father had a gambling addiction. He had dipped into the family savings to fuel his habit, and everyone was hanging on by a thread. After an intervention, Luke had stopped, but by then things were already bad for the family. That is not all, though. He also confided in me that his dad was emotionally abusive and made him feel like trash. It was the same cycle I went through, just happening with him again. After making him the golden child, Luke gave up on him, just like he gave up on me. I gave him support and reassurance, and told him that if it ever got too much, he could come to stay with me. Update 3, I called Luke and gave him a piece of my mind. I told him that I did not trust him, and also let out a lot of anger from the past. After that, I did say that I would, to the best of my ability, try and save up money for Kyle to go to college by the time he turns 18. But he should also invest in building a strong portfolio and hunting for scholarships. I also told him that if I heard that he reacted harshly about this to Kyle, or abused him in any way, I would call Child Protective Services. He seemed pretty scared by that threat, so I am happy that I am making the best choice now. I know that I have no idea what my financial situation will be like in the future. I also know a lot of you may not agree with that, seeing as I just reconnected with my brother recently, but I do not want him to fail just because his parents were trashy. I got out of it because I was supported by my father's family, but Kyle does not even have that. Not the a-hole, but you are being generous to your brother, original poster. Do you feel guilty that he is also going through the same stuff you did? I commend you for taking responsibility for him. Love. Definitely the a-hole. It just makes me sad that some people are not fit to raise kids. By the way, direct message me. I am an admissions counselor. I might be able to give you some feedback on how Kyle could go to college in the future. Next story. My mom and I do not get along. She was not around much, but we are trying now. She is getting better, or so I thought. We were at this fancy restaurant, my mom's favorite, and there was this relatively young couple with twin toddlers and another younger kid. There were other families, so they did not stick out or anything. I just noticed them because we were seated directly beside them. The younger one kept babbling and hitting his spoon against the table. He also knocked over a drink and spilled it all over his mom. When my mom noticed, she gave me a look and said, "You never did that as a baby." I just said, "Okay," and attempted to change the conversation. Then, one of the twins had to use the washroom, I think, so Dad took him while Mom and the other two kids were still seated. She was taking photos of her kids and told them to say cheese, and the other twin said, "She is," a little too loudly before erupting into giggles. The younger one thought that was hilarious and started hitting his spoon harder. Mom was trying to take the spoon from him, but the other kid was distracting her too. This made my mom upset, and I kid you not, she stood up, walked up to the woman and said, "Excuse me, you are in public. Do not bring your children to places like these if you cannot control them. Just by looking at you, I can tell that the kids make the rules, and you follow them. People like you give parents a bad name." She then looked at the boy and went, "Behave," real sternly. The woman seemed too shocked to speak, and honestly, so was I. My mom looked really satisfied, though, and told me that she never let me and my siblings out of the house until we were a certain age, and ranted about how selfish the parents are. I was still in shock, because who just does that? I asked my mom what she was thinking, and she excused her behavior with, "I'm a retired teacher and a full-time parent. I know what I am doing." That made me upset because she is most definitely not a full-time parent. Maybe for the first 5 years of my life, but definitely not for a long time after that, and definitely not now either. I walked up to the woman. Her husband was back, and it seemed like she was filling him in. I told her that I was so sorry for my mother's actions, and reassured her that my mom is not someone anyone should take parenting advice from. I called her kids cute, then left after paying the bill. My mom is absolutely furious, and apparently extremely humiliated and embarrassed. She said that after I left, the woman's husband approached her and told her to mind her own problems with her own kids, and it embarrassed her to death. She said that I had no right to expose our issues, etc., etc. I do feel a little petty, and my dad thinks we are both being childish, which is not wrong, but Jesus Christ, am I the a-hole? Oh, not the a-hole for sure. She is the one who decided to be public about how great a mother she is. Since her qualities as a mother were up for public discussion, you just followed her cue. Your mother is delusional, and you absolutely did the right thing to talk to the other family. Your mom is the one who ruined the dinner and acted childish, while the little kids acted no worse than most little kids. Your mom was the adult having a tantrum, not the a-hole. Like others have said, she did this to herself. She might have gotten an earful from the husband regardless of what you said. Telling someone off for their kids' bad behavior in public is already bad, then using language that belittles their parenting skills is even worse. But then she tripled down by telling a young kid to behave, which is actually hilarious because anyone who has spent time with a young kid knows that does not work. No one likes someone with a holier-than-thou attitude, especially when they have no right to be that way. Your mom is lucky the couple did not do more. Next story. My sister-in-law, Stephanie, recently had a baby. Stephanie wants my partner, Kate, Stephanie's sister, and I to be his godparents. I was honored and initially agreed. The trouble came 1 week ago when we sat down to discuss the process of becoming godparents. Kate's family is Catholic, not strict or devout, but Stephanie still wants her son to be baptized through the church. I found out that in order to be a godfather, I would basically be required to become Catholic. I would need to be confirmed by the church, and would be strongly encouraged to attend weekly mass, pay tithes, etc., after being confirmed. Kate and I would also need to meet with the priest to discuss our living situation because we live together. We have been together for 14 years but are not married through the Catholic Church. I am not religious. If I had to identify, I would probably say agnostic, maybe leaning toward atheism, and I do not feel comfortable with converting to Catholicism in order to be my nephew's godfather. I explained this to Stephanie, and she got very upset. She said I should be willing to go through the steps, and that I could just not participate in the religious aspect afterwards. That is, go through the process of officially becoming Catholic, and after the baptism, I could dip out on attending church, tithes, etc. I am very firm in my decision that I do not want to go through with this, but Stephanie is insistent that since I will not really be Catholic, it will not make a difference in my life. She says, "You will just be Catholic on paper." Stephanie is now threatening to not let us be involved in her son's life anymore. She told Kate, "If he is not devoted enough to nephew to do this, does he really care about nephew? And how much can he really care about you if he is willing to ruin your relationship with nephew just because he does not want to jump through a few hoops?" Kate is fine with my decision. It is possible for a child to only have one godparent, and since she is Catholic, she would be willing to be the sole godparent. Stephanie is not okay with this option and says, It is both of you or neither of you. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to be involved in this process if it requires me to join a religion I do not feel comfortable with, even if I would not technically be required to participate in the religion after the baptism ceremony was over? As long as one godparent is Catholic, the other does not have to be. You could stand as a witness. It is preferred, but it is not necessary. Also, I'm not sure Stephanie understands what goes into becoming Catholic. You do not take a few classes, and you are done. It is a year-long process with a lot of meetings, personal discussions, and evaluations. It is a lot to ask. If Stephanie is throwing out ultimatums, let her call her bluff. The bottom line is, she's expecting you to follow her beliefs for her convenience, but she will not allow you to follow yours. Not the a-hole. I am a godfather in title only myself, but if it forced me into a religion, regardless of how involved I would be, I would have also declined. It is an unreasonable request. Please note, Stephanie is an idiot trying to correlate not willing to join a religion to not loving your nephew. If you really want to be petty, write a letter to her priest. Explain the situation and say you are confused because you always considered it to be a big deal and were jealous of folks that had the conviction to be part of the church. Tell him you are uncomfortable with the picture of Catholicism sister-in-law has provided, and ask him if it really is not a big deal to convert, and whether you should go ahead if you do not really believe. Personally, I think this would be valuable advice if you wrote the letter in earnest. Then I would be wary of laying it on too thick, but you could choose to drop some lines like, "Apparently my discomfort is a sign I do not love my nephew." Surely that is not true, is it? I am almost certain you would get a very reasonable and thoughtful response, but best of all, you now have a written authority on the matter you can cite and embarrass sister-in-law if she ever tries to speak for the church again. As I sit here in my garage in Texas, surrounded by the half-restored chassis of a '67 Mustang that's become my escape, I can't help but let the floodgates open. It's been a whirlwind since that call from Luke, and now with the dust settling after confronting him, I feel like I've been carrying this emotional baggage for decades. 27 years old and I'm still unpacking the mess my family left me with. Where do I even start? The resentment, the anger, the guilt. It's all tangled up like old wiring in one of these cars. But talking about it, even if it's just to myself or whoever reads this, feels like loosening a knot that's been choking me. Growing up, I never felt like I belonged. My dad died before I was born, and for the first 12 years, it was just me and Mom. We weren't perfect, but we had each other. Then Luke came along, and everything shifted. He wasn't outright violent, at least not physically, but his words were like slow poison. He'd forget to pick me up from school, leaving me stranded in the rain, only to blame me for not reminding him enough. Or he'd make snide comments about how I was lazy compared to his future kids, even before Kyle was born. I remember feeling this pit in my stomach every time he looked at me, like I was an intruder in my own home. And Mom? She changed. She used to defend me, but after marrying him, it was like she handed over the reins. She'd say things like, "Luke's just stressed," or "Give him time." Time for what? To make me feel even smaller? Then Kyle arrived, and bam! The golden child era began. I get it, babies are cute, demanding, all that. But watching every ounce of attention pour into him while I faded into the background, it hurt deeply. I was 13, hormonal, confused, and suddenly invisible. They'd fuss over his first steps, his diet, his playdates, while I was lucky if anyone asked how my day was. I started resenting Kyle, which I hate admitting now. He'd cry, and I'd think, why does he get everything? But it wasn't his fault. He was just a kid, born into a role I could never fill. My passive-aggressive jabs at him only fueled Luke's narrative that I was the problem child. It was a vicious cycle. I'd act out from hurt, they'd punish me, and I'd hurt more. Running away at 14 was my breaking point. I packed a bag, hopped on a bus, and thought I'd start fresh. But after a week of sleeping rough and feeling terrified, I got caught. Coming home should have been a wake-up call for them, right? A chance to hug me, talk, fix things? Nope. Luke's first words were accusatory, like I'd done it to spite him. Mom cried, but she didn't fight for me. That rejection stung worse than the hunger or cold. It confirmed what I'd feared. I wasn't worth the effort. Thank God for my grandparents. They were my lifeline. Grandma's stories about Dad made me feel connected to something real, something mine. Grandpa taught me mechanics, life skills, how to stand tall. When they offered to take me to Florida, it was like being thrown a rope in a storm. Leaving Mom and Luke? I felt guilty, like I was abandoning her, but also liberated. For the first time, I breathed easy. No more walking on eggshells. School in Florida was tough at first, new kid, old people everywhere, but I thrived. friends, hobbies, a sense of self. They paid for my engineering degree out of their savings, something Mom and Luke dismissed as impossible for them. That lie still boils my blood. They had the money, they just didn't have it for me. Years passed with minimal contact. I'd hear snippets from relatives, Kyle's doing great, family's fine. I built my life, job at the auto company, side gig restoring cars. It's therapeutic, you know? Taking something broken, rusty, forgotten, and making it shine again. That's how I felt about myself. But reconnecting with Kyle? That was hard. At first I was cold, the resentment lingered. But he's 15 now, polite, smart, and reaching out. Giving him that gaming PC for his birthday felt right, a small bridge. Seeing their house in disarray shocked me. Sold furniture, tense vibes. Then the call they're in debt, spent Kyle's college fund, and suddenly, I'm the savior? Luke guilting me with for your brother? Mom threatening no access to Kyle? It was manipulative BS straight from their playbook. Learning about Luke's gambling addiction. It all clicked. He'd squandered everything, just like he'd squandered my childhood. And now Kyle's suffering the same abuse, feeling like trash, the golden child turned scapegoat. Hearing him open up on the phone broke me. He's just a kid, like I was, trapped in that toxicity. I felt rage toward Luke, sorrow for Kyle, and a weird pity for Mom, who's enabled this mess. But mostly, protectiveness surged through me. I told Kyle he could crash with me anytime. No one should endure that alone. Confronting Luke was cathartic, unleashing years of pent-up anger. How he made me feel worthless, how he repeated the cycle with Kyle. I didn't hold back. Threatening CPS if he hurts Kyle? That fear in his voice was satisfying. Agreeing to save for Kyle's college? It's not about them, it's about him. I don't have endless cash, mortgage looming, life expenses, but I'll try. Scholarships, portfolios, I guide him. He deserves a shot, unlike what I got from them. My grandparents saved me, now I can pay it forward. But emotionally, I'm a wreck. Grateful for my life now. Stable job, hobbies, independence, but haunted by what-ifs. What if Mom had left Luke? What if I'd never run away? Guilt nags. Should I have reached out to Kyle sooner? Forgiven Mom? No. Boundaries are key. This situation reopened old wounds, but it's also healing. Seeing Kyle as an ally, not enemy, lifts a weight. I'm proud of who I am, resilient, kind despite the crap. Yet vulnerability lingers, fear of repeating patterns, of letting people in. Therapy's on my list. I need to process this. Ultimately, hope flickers. For Kyle's future, for mine. Restoring cars teaches patience. Life's the same. Piece by piece, I'll rebuild. No more golden child shadows. Just me, moving forward, with a brother by my side. It's messy, raw, but real. And that's enough.